Ian, we got a Patreon, don't we?
Patreon.com/CU podcast. You go. I'll take a look at what we offer you. We offer you stuff. You get the full video podcast. You get pretty much weekly writings, hangouts. We got to schedule our hangout this month. You can get access to the bonus bits. We have a pin club. So much you can do.
So much fun
at the CU podcast Patreon. So check it out and give us some support.
So here's the Patreon poll that you voted on this week. In second place, is grading or reselling worse for video game collecting? 29%. In first place, what could modern games learn from classic/retro games? Ian, what could the modern games in general learn from the games of yesteryear?
So my problem with modern games, big modern games, is they feel...
What type of games?
Huh? Big. They feel incredibly bloated to me. There's always, very lengthy hand-holding, tutorials. I feel like a lot of the side quest stuff is just padding. You're doing the same shit over and over again. I really prefer a leaner, meaner game. Now, some of this is preference, clearly. There are some people who love open world games, and I get it. I can't focus on them. But I do think something could be said about streamlining the tutorial process. There's got to be something between the, 8-bit fucking figure it out and this, modern PlayStation 5 era stuff, PS4 era, where, your tutorials are taking an hour to an hour and a half.
An hour and a half tutorial?
For some games, yeah.
What?
Like I was playing...
How much time do you think adults have?
Like I was playing Dying Light on the PS4, a while back, and it was just like, it was a slog. It was a slog. I never got past the tutorial because I wanted to fucking play. And it's like, go do this and talk to this character. Now go do this and talk to this character. And like each time you do something, they're like introducing like a little new mechanic. It's like,
why don't you just do it naturally? In the game design of the levels.
I mean, I guess it was supposed to feel natural, but like too many of them drag you through every single aspect of the game when it's like, how about you just teach me about this when I approach it? Actually, there's a lot of JRPGs that are good about that, where they'll just give you the basics up front, and then like as you get into more advanced mechanics, they'll be like, okay, now here's another little tutorial instead of trying to do it all at once.
As you get to it.
Yeah. But I would also like more linear games. I don't play a lot of AAA stuff because I don't love open world games. I feel like, it's the old saying, it's a mile wide pool, but it's a fucking inch deep. I would rather have more focus on like a clean, a clean focused single player game. I haven't played it yet, and I should, but the God of War game is actually the recent the what's the word I'm looking for? Not reimagining, like a reboot. The reboot of God of War. There was a lot of people who were like, oh, this game's like linear, it's not open world, and that was strange to them. And for me, I think that's good. I think there is plenty of room.
Were any of them open world?
No.
God of War? Okay, that's what I thought.
There's plenty of room for focused single player games alongside open world stuff. And I wish there was just a little bit more variety like there used to be.
When do you think that turned? When did that change where like you seem like the AAA game was leaning more
I think Xbox One, PlayStation 4 was really when it happened.
Past several years.
You started seeing that happening in the 360 PS3 era. I think that's Gen 7. But it was by the time PS4 and Xbox One were the current systems, that's really when everything just seemed to kind of go to open world.
Was it, you think that was in part due to like the success of like GTA 5 and like Red Dead 2?
Oh, absolutely. The success of Grand Theft Auto 3 on the PlayStation 2 was like, I mean, from that point on, you could see people trying to work every game into an open world framework.
Or even back then, 20 years ago.
Yeah, or even if it's a more linear game or a more straightforward game, like Yakuza is not nearly as like big of in scope as something like Grand Theft Auto, but it was still, you walk around a town and there's little things you can see, and like that's fine. But I don't think every game needs to do that. Just like when RPGs got big in the PlayStation era, every game started to try adding like little RPG elements to it. You don't need that in every game. Everything starts to feel the fucking same.
I think that's maybe their it's their ploy. Some of these devs where it's like, wow, we make this open world that automatically means there's a lot more content
Right.
for people to buy it, and that's not always the case.
No, especially because like people don't. Not everyone engages with all the content.
Like
so if you put way too much time into something that no one's touching, the game still feels half baked.
Like if this Sonic game comes out that's open world, but you have like very little justification for running around besides running around, I mean, is that better than a traditional linear Sonic game?
Sure.
Like that's the question. Something like Zelda at least was inherently open world, so it made sense for them to have open world games. That's how they are. But for some of these properties, it might not make sense. And why not just tell a good story?
Right.
Is that become more difficult maybe just to tell a good story? Are we not valuing writers as much to like have a coherent, cogent story with like nice characters that have story like arcs to them and like dramatic tensions that happen? Like, is that something we're like shying away from, or no? I don't know. I don't play enough of this stuff to know. Like, if there's a big difference in the AAA open world versus a linear game like this, I don't know. But that's a good point. I was going to talk about tutorials versus getting your feet wet on game mechanics.
Sure.
I was going to talk about that. Famously, the first stage of Super Mario Brothers is like a masterclass in design because it introduces things to you in a very set way as you go through. You get the one Goomba at first.
Oh yeah.
You get a block, then you get a mushroom. You realize you can't hit a brick first until you get a mushroom. It's set out in such a way that it logically makes sense.
It teaches you everything. Yeah.
It teaches you as you go. You get the star later when you have more enemies in a row coming, and that's where the star shows up. It really holds your hand for that first stage.
It doesn't though. You never know that you're playing a tutorial.
No, but looking back, it's really holding.
Sure, I just when I say hand holding, I mean something completely different, I guess.
Okay, I mean like it doesn't throw you to the wolves that first stage.
No,
like when you're 4 years old.
No, absolutely, it doesn't.
You can beat that first stage.
Hand holding, I just mean like over the top, heavy handed tutorials, like press A, do this.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah,
go to here and talk to this person, and this is what happens.
Right.
Obviously, what you can also learn from retro games is that going a little bit to the point, shorter might be better. Brevity could be great.
That was something I wanted to say too. I like rein some of this shit in. I don't need a 100-hour game.
Yes.
And you'll keep your budget smaller too.
I mean, obviously, looking back in the 80s, you started from the arcade experience where you were lucky to play for more than 5 minutes before you lost your quarter. And then NES games are anywhere from 15, 20 minutes to a couple hours. Legend of Zelda you can beat in a couple hours if you're good at it. So you had this little range. And then it exploded sometime, once you got, say past into the 90s, the game length in general started going up on this stuff, where you got to like 9 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours. Maybe there was also the rise of like JRPGs, but even I don't think those were probably as bad as the games. I mean,
if I had to get, I think like Final Fantasy VI probably 35, 40 hours.
So that's where it kind of exploded.
Yeah, but even that's like smaller than what they are now. Like every RPG these days is like, it has to be a 50-hour fucking masterpiece.
Well, you said 35 is still pretty long.
It is, but it's shorter than what I'm saying. It's shorter than what came after.
Really, 35 hours of Final Fantasy 7?
No, not 7. 6.
Okay, 6.
Yeah,
okay.
Final Fantasy 7 I think took me about 45, 50 my first time through.
So that to me would be like my cutoff personally for like what's a reasonable time I want to put into a game, just based upon what I have going on. Obviously, there's people that gaming is their main hobby and only hobby, so I get that. I'm not trying to put that down. But if you tell me like it's going to take you 200 hours to get through this game or 250, I will never play that game.
No,
I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know what I'm comfortable stopping. Then I would think to myself, Ian, I put 75 hours into this game. Was that a fucking waste of time? Since I never have more time to get into it, I wouldn't bother to start it. I would be afraid to personally. That's the thing about brevity. Do you think controls can be simplified at all at this point, or is it too late to sort of like try to simplify any control scheme.
I think that just depends on the game. I find like a lot of games, aren't using all of the buttons on a controller. I think that's really just. I think there are games that call for complex controls and there are games that don't. And I feel like developers, good game developers, if it's a good game, whether anyone, outright calls it out or not, it's partially due to good controls.
Sure.
I guess what I'm saying is because of how complex some games have gotten, you can't just go back to obviously like a D-pad and 2 buttons. There are some games that have worse controls, but I don't think that's necessarily something you learn from the past and bring to the present.
Sure, it's tough. I mean, going back to something like Breath of the Wild, that's a pretty complex control scheme, especially compared to the Zelda games of yesteryear.
Sure,
it uses almost every single button on the Switch.
Yeah, but I mean that's evolution. I don't think there's a whole lot of Yeah, I just don't think there's a whole lot of simplification you can do.
You can't, because you have to like draw back the bow and aim, and then you're
you
jumping
can get
around,
developers that are really good at their
it's
controls,
tough.
and you can refine them. But I don't think you can really oversimplify these controls these days.
No, you can't do that. Obviously, we talk about this every year. I would love for real manuals to make a return. I think they're just nice to have a manual. I think it's nice. I think it's nice to be able to read something separately outside the game. I don't want to have to learn about the game by turning it on.
I bring this up anytime something comes in. I would love the return of manuals.
Give me 8 pages. Can you give me 8 pages? Control, story, controls, basic layout, modes. Give me 8 to 10 pages. You don't need a 50-page manual. Give me 10 pages. I think that'd be nice. I think it'd be nice. I can study while I'm eating food or watching something. Oh,
Look how nice.
Because I think there's something to be said for learning a little bit more about a game versus over a period of time versus being forced to fucking swallow all the information at once. Maybe that's what it is too.
Yeah.
I gotta learn by learning. I gotta turn on the game and play it to learn about it, and then play it. It's like fucking cramming for a test.
Let me read a manual on the ride home while taking a shit.
Yes, thank you. I would be reading again. Have a stack of manuals next to the toilet, and there you go. We honestly, we sound like old men. We like to read. I read the manual front to back before I played every NES game I ever
Print reference guides cannot be beaten by a phone or the internet. You need to be able to flip pages and look back and forth. It's quicker. It's better.
Physical books have not died out.
No loading.
Physical books have not died out for a reason.
Yeah,
But
no ads.
no ads.
No ads.
There might be an ad in the manual just for like, hey, buy WrestleMania coming out also from
Sure,
Acclaim.
but it's not like half my fucking phone screen is trying to find one location.
You're not turning the page in a fucking pop-up and no pop-up ads in print. That's the good news.
Yes.
No pop-up ads in certain guidebooks at all. So, all right. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's there's something to be said for that. The controls thing, I would love to. The control things might just be going back to making sure that the experience is simplified. Just because you have a next-gen system doesn't mean the entire experience has to be next-gen. You can still, it's like something like Untitled Goose Game, for example. It's still a pretty simple game, right?
Oh yeah, very simple.
It's just clever.
Yep.
So you don't always have to use everything available to you to make a good modern game. Maybe that's what maybe that's what the lesson is.